this wire in his battery bank is the one that overheated and fried earlier. All of his wiring is actually undersized for his 3000 watt inverter. This 2-aught cable, which I'm holding, is much smaller than the 4-aught cable that we're using now. The reason for fusing is to actually protect your wiring. One common mistake that many people do when they add solar is if you have a fifth wheel, it is almost a must if you're doing a system like this. Point out a few tips for a couple of you DIYers out there that might be looking to do this on your own. A tip for you guys out there, if you're using this as a 600 amp rated switch, the switch is, hey, can we put them in here? The answer is you already have no storage. So to fill up half your storage with batteries is just not the answer. This is a good kind of tip for some of you DIYers out there. Tom and I, if you're on site, kind of change the plan of how we're going to position this battery bank. When you're done, this is going to look so clean. We got through this whole time not making a mess, and we just destroyed it.
So we've got a couple viewer questions for you, Harrison.
Live feed there.
Yay, our new lithium batteries are here. This is going to be awesome.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Cherie.
And we're EnjoyTheJourney.Life.
We've got an awesome video for you guys today. It's great to see you again, Harrison, from Enduro Power Batteries here. We met like over a year ago.
Yep, in the desert out in just outside Tucson, Arizona.
Right, for like install on steroids, right?
Definitely, yeah. I think we would call it like bat wings, you know.
Right, so we'll actually link to the web's amazing install video down below so you can check it out. I think we're doing something a little more typical.
Yeah, typical.
Maybe.
I mean, this is kind of what we're doing today represents like what the average call we get a day, which is like, you know, what are the basic needs I need to accomplish what I'm trying to do. So that's kind of what we're working on today.
Enduro Power, how long have you been in business?
Yep. So we've been in business for 2.5 years, since 2020.
Okay.
I myself am one of the 2 co-founders of Enduro Power. I've been in the battery industry for over a decade. Worked on the marketing side of things for Rayvac batteries, convenience Duracell and Energizer over 8 to 10 years ago. And I'm just personally passionate about 12 volts. I've been in like car audio, toy trains, RC cars, all those things. So just the natural extension of that hobby on through my career has been, really fulfilling for myself.
Well, that's great because so many of us RVers, we know we need a battery upgrade, but we don't know how to do it or where to go, and we need experts like you to like walk us through it. And we have some lithium right now, but it's not enough for what we want to do. Yeah. I guess that's probably the question you get all the time, right?
Yeah, the question I would say is like, I have this, I'm trying to do this, how much battery do I need? Or another big common question is, hey, just bought this great new fifth wheel or travel trailer and it's got a residential fridge. My battery will only last 2 or 3 hours. What do I do? So yeah, helping our customers size their battery bank properly is a common question we help out with. We do help in some other areas as well. Yeah, for your example, you have 600 amp hours of lithium today, which is a very, very sizable battery bank.
Right.
For people that are looking to start off gridding, 600 amp hours is phenomenal. And you can do that with like 2 of our 12 volt 300 amp hour batteries. 2 batteries takes care of that. But in your case, you're looking to do even more off-grid boondocking. I think you have a little over 1,100 watts of solar.
Right. And so we've been able to successfully run air conditioning all night. We're in Florida. It's hot, even though it's the winter time technically. Here, AC runs all night, and we actually have a trip coming up in a couple of weeks that will be either at a Harvest Host or dry camping at like a casino parking lot.
Sure.
And so I've got 2 nights, 48 hours, where I prefer not to use a generator, and in some cases, generators are not allowed. So We typically, with 600 amp hours, we drain, one night of air conditioning.
Yeah.
Those batteries are drained, and our solar isn't enough to recharge that currently. So we've talked about this, and we're basically going to double that capacity.
Correct.
Today.
Yep, so we're going to double your capacity from 600 to 1200. The other thing we're going to do is right now you have 6 individual batteries, which are great for your current battery system.
Okay.
But as you double that, we wouldn't want to do 12 volt 100s. That'd be just too many batteries wired together, create more resistance in the whole battery bank. And so we're going to go to 4 12 volt 300s. So you'll get 1200 amp hours with 4 batteries instead of 12 physical batteries, which is a really smart upgrade.
Okay, so most people are really familiar with typical 12 volt 100, typical kind of smaller battery size, but we're like, these are larger batteries.
That's correct.
Right? So basically we eliminate 3 batteries per battery.
Correct.
So the resistance, let's say if we went 12 100 watts and we wired them all together, lots more cable, more expense,
exactly.
certainly, and if you're not doing DIY, more expense, but what is the resistance that develops from all those extra connections?
With all those individual connections, cable lug to fastener and daisy chaining down through, you create more points of opportunity for resistance within the cable, within the battery bank, assuming you had a properly sized wiring in the first place. But we want to, the less potential for resistance that we can have in the battery bank, the healthier it's going to be over time. So the fewer connections you have, it's just going to be better. The energy is going to flow smoother. There's less points along the way that the energy can get interrupted. And also, just from a safety standpoint, the more connections you have, the more connections you have to maintain, make sure they're properly torqued and whatnot, because if those get loose, that becomes a hazard. So the fewer connections you have, the healthier that battery bank is going to be over time.
Subscribe to our channel so you catch all of our RV Lithium and solar install videos.
I think you have a 3,000 watt inverter, the
Right.
GoPower IC 3000. If that's the case, I typically like to see 4-aught cable to carry that amount of current, but I'll dive in here and kind of get a better look to see what we're working with. If all that pans out, I'm feeling that we're probably a little undersized on some of your cabling, and so we'll upgrade up to 4-aught from your inverter all the way to the battery bank, and then through your battery bank we'll use 4-aught as well, just to stay on the safe side.
Make sure you check out our companion blog post for this video down in the description, where you can find other RV solar and lithium install videos, links to the parts and supplies used for this, and other items.
So yeah, you've got, just for everybody here, this is the GoPower IC 3000, which is a 3,000 watt inverter charger. So this is allowing Tom to basically run anything that's AC appliance when you're off grid off your battery bank. It's a 3,000 watt inverter, so he can run his air conditioner, he can run his microwave. Now, you're not going to run your air conditioner forever. You're going to drain the battery bank pretty quickly. I know that you've had some experiences with your 600 amp hours where you say you've gone all night with the air conditioner. I would say that you've gone all night in a fairly mild climate with your air conditioner, so your AC was cycling on and off less than if you were in a really hot environment, because 600 amp hours full out, middle of the day, trying to keep up, you're going to be dead in 4 hours with 600 amp hours. So just to kind of, even your new 1200 amp hour battery bank would be 8 hours unless you're recharging from solar or other sources. So there's so many variables that go into sizing a battery bank based on your charge sources and your needs. But yeah, so inverter charger here. Beyond it here, it looks like you have 2 GoPower 60 amp MPPT solar charge controllers. These are running your 1100 watts of solar on top. Again, these are already here. Everything there, just at first glance, looks good from the cable sizing, but we are going to, on this IC3000, you have 2-aught cable here. We are going to upgrade this to 4-aught cable, which is bigger diameter. It'll carry the current, so when you are maxing this out, running 3,000 watts, running your air conditioner for multiple hours, pop on a microwave, you'll have the proper cable size carrying the power from the battery bank.
Yeah, like you were mentioning, running the air conditioning, we typically run with the AC and the fan on, so the fan keeps going. And right, the AC's not going all night, you know, running, but the fan is.
Exactly.
At least. So that's going to be a little less power draw.
You know what you're going to be able to do is you're going to become very well educated once you get this battery monitor shunt in, because you'll be able to see the actual current draw that your system is using from the battery bank. Just by opening up your app, looking at the battery monitor, you're going to see that you're not pulling 140 to 150 amps, you know, cycling the AC, but you might only, as you said, just the blower's going, and at that point in time you're using 10 amps an hour. So you'll educate yourself with that battery monitor as well.
Okay, good deal.
Thanks to Harrison, we can save you 5% off your battery order using our link and code in the description and the companion blog post.
So Harrison, are you impressed by all the storage I have right here?
Man, full timing, this is like a full timer's dream, you know. Yeah. Wow. I don't know how you do it, man.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't really consider with this particular Momentum model, is there's not a lot of storage.
And that's not all Momentums, that just this specific model.
Right.
Less storage. So yeah, we were kind of talking about like what are we gonna do with your battery bank? And you know, battery banks, as we said earlier, with a lithium battery, they can just go about just about anywhere. Now, you want to keep your batteries relatively close to your inverter, to your bus bar. The shorter run that you have in those cables, the better and more optimal your system is going to be, and keep your the cost of your cabling down. So, you know, up front is where our batteries currently are. We looked in here in the pass through to see, hey, can we put them in here? The answer is you already have no storage. So to fill up half your storage with batteries is just not the answer. So kind of looking up front to see what we can do up here. You know, you have your current 600 amp hour battery bank here, you know, all in one level. Fits you. You're able to tuck back in here behind your hydraulics and kind of get snug back in there. With the doubling the size, you can imagine if you took 6 more of these and you put them here, you're going to be up into your access here to your hydraulics over in this area from a maintenance standpoint, even, you know, repair. You have some 12 volt DC bus bars and some other stuff we've put in up here, or we're going to upgrade. We need to have access to. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 of the 12300s down here, and then many of the people have been putting up on top of their generator box. We're going to reinforce the top of the box. So we're going to take the weight and disperse it along the strong points of the box, and then reinforce it and put 2 of our 12300s up here. So we'll have 2 of them down here, 2 up here, all secured in a place, and we'll put the whole battery bank together. That way you get the capacity you want, but you also maintain that access for that maintenance, because the last thing we want to do is put your battery bank in and not be able to get into other critical items that you need to in the future. Here's a little bit of a schematic of the system that Tom's putting in. Well, again, most of these components are already in place. We're just kind of upgrading the battery bank and making a few modifications to the wiring to upsize to the proper wire size. So to take a look here, we have our 4 12 volt 300 amp hour Enduro power batteries. Gives us a 12 volt 1200 amp hour of capacity battery bank, and you'll see here that all these are individually wired to this bus bar. This bus bar has positive and negative in the same unit, so that's what you're seeing going on here. You may ask, why did you run to the bus bar? A lot of times once you get over 3+ batteries in a battery bank, in a big battery bank, we may use the bus bar method for wiring together. The other option you can do for parallel connecting is to go positive to positive to positive to positive, and then negative, negative, negative across. We couldn't do that in the case of this install because 2 of the batteries are sitting down in one location and the other 2 are up higher in another location. You'll see that in the video. And so because of that, we want all these cables to be the same equal length, going either between the batteries, in which we couldn't do. So in this case, we want them equal length to a bus bar. And that'll help the battery bank be balanced over time. Very important for the longevity and performance of your battery bank. That basically takes care of our battery bank. And then from there, we just now have a positive and negative coming out. So it's like one big battery and then positive, negative. On the positive side, we go through our catastrophic fuse. It's a 300 amp fuse for his inverter charger. We go through a main cutoff switch, so this will cut off all 12 volt power anywhere in the rig because it's basically the first thing coming out of the battery bank. So if you need to turn down 12 volt, boom, turn that off. It shuts off the power to the inverter charger and then comes down here to all of your existing RV loads, all the stock RV positives, and also the solar charge controller that was added in his install previously is landing on here, and they flow right through the system there. And then the last thing I'll touch on is the battery monitor and the shunt. The shunt is what's measuring, as we talked about, measuring the current that's flowing across the shunt. And that's coming right on the negative side of the bus bar, capturing all the load that's being pulled out of the battery bank is flowing across that shunt before it goes to any of these loads. So one common mistake that many people do when they add solar is they get a solar panel, they put it on, and they run the positive and negative directly to the battery bank, and they bypass the shunt. So they go over here, positive, negative, or if you had one battery, they go straight to it. If you bypass the shunt, it has no way of recording the information, the energy that's brought in from the solar panel, and therefore your shunt is no longer accurate. So very important, if you install a shunt in your system, all load cables are, the load side of the shunt are downstream. It's just a quick overview of the system that Tom has and the modifications we've done. The main thing here was the GoPower IC3000 previously had 2-aught cable running to the battery bank, and because it's a 3000 watt inverter at 12 volts, he should have had 4-aught cable. And then also within his battery bank, he was undersized in some of his cables as well, so we've upsized those, even oversized them in some cases, to make sure that if he's running this inverter full out, all the cabling in the system is capable of delivering that current safely and efficiently. All right, we got 2 more tips for you on the wiring side of things. One is some basics on fusing, and the second one is some basics on grounding if you add any larger equipment into your system. So on the grounding side of things, your RV, all your 12 volts are grounded to your chassis in various spots. You'll see some locations where a couple wires come together in one spot on your RV. One thing to note is if you're adding larger equipment, for in this case, Tom had the 3000 watt inverter. We talked about before, he had 2-aught cable, he should have had 4-aught cable, so we're gonna upgrade the wiring. But in addition to that, when you increase your wiring over a stock system, we need to make sure that that larger wire also has a path to the chassis, the ground source. And so, for example here, we have a 2-aught wire that was hooked up in his original system coming off his inverter. It comes down and it ties into the battery bank here, which is right from an electrical standpoint, but we also need to make sure that then that has a attachment to the chassis as a chassis ground. So we will add that into his new system. You'll see that come off of the big bus bar, and that'll tie right to the ground. So it gives that larger cable a path to the ground, or the chassis source. The second thing we'll talk about is fusing. The one thing I think that's not understood fully is the reason for fusing is to actually protect your wiring. Of course, it'll help it protect some equipment too, but the main reason for fuses is to protect your wiring in the system. And Tom asked a great question. We talked about before, this wire in his battery bank is the one that overheated and fried earlier. We've talked about all of his wiring is actually undersized for his 3000 watt inverter, which we're going to switch out. But the question is, well, wouldn't the fuse take care of this? And it would if the fuse is sized properly to this size wire that he had in the system. So for example, he has a 300 amp fuse for his 2000 or even a 3000 watt inverter is sized properly, but then the wiring past it is undersized. So in this case, the weak link was the cable here that fried. It's about a 6-gauge wire, and it just can't handle the amperage that inverter was asking for. And again, the fuse didn't blow because it's rated at 300 amps. So as long as all the wire is properly sized, a proper sized fuse in your system will protect the wiring. But if you have undersized wiring, your fuse is not going to protect you from that. So general rule of thumb is make sure you size your wires properly or oversize your wires. Or better yet, if you're not comfortable with any of this, always seek out a professional installer to help you with this part of your system install. All right, so here's a little tip. So if you're doing any 12-volt work on your RV for an extended period of time, and here we have our refrigerator is here, you want to keep your fridge cool. So you know, you might be down for an hour, you might be down for a couple hours depending on what you're doing. So what you can do is just connect your refrigerator directly to shore power. Taking off here, every RV fridge looks a little different back here, but they all are going to have, you go swinging around here real quick. Over here we have just a standard 120 plug for your shore power. So there's an outlet there. We pulled this out. We're just going to connect this up. We have this connected to shore power, and then you're kicking on to propane right now, but we'll go back to shore power there. So that'll get you keep this fridge running off of shore power while we shut down the 12-volt system.
Okay, I see we're supporting the wasps here too, huh?
There's always lots of creepy stuff in here sometimes, but it's good also to keep that, from RV maintenance standpoint, to keep this area clear as well.
All kinds of things want to make a nest in there, huh?
Sure, definitely.
Thing of beauty.
Yeah. Got 65 pounds right there, so lightweight relative to, I mean, a traditional AGM, that's an 8D size case. Traditional AGM might be about 160 to 180 pounds versus, versus 65 here, and you know, half the weight, but also double the energy. So
good deal.
excellent. So we're making some cables for the system here. I just thought we'd take the opportunity to point out a few tips for a couple of you DIYers out there that might be looking to do this on your own. First off, number one is definitely highly recommend high quality welding cable. Fine strands, very flexible. The multiple strands have less resistance, carry more current more efficiently. So welding cable is your starting point, regardless of the size wire it is. And the next step is obviously our end goal here is to get a nice finished lug that's heat shrinked. So you start by stripping back the sheathing, having good quality cutters on it. On a large cable like a 4/aught, you're going to have to use you know, some quality cutters. Strip around. When you're doing that, be careful not to take off too many extra hairs. You want to keep as much of the copper intact. Once we have that, we're just going to grab a lug. We're working with 4/aught cable here. On your lugs, you do have the size, so this is a 3/8 inch diameter. Most of the studs we're working with are 3/8. If you have a smaller system, you might have a 5/16. Also, there's some big switches like Blue Seas out there. They're 600 amp rated. It's a larger diameter hole as well as stud. So keep that in mind when you're buying lugs, is what size do you need. It's very important because you will end up not having the right piece at the right time. So we're going to throw this on the end of the cable. You want to make sure that you get in all those extra strands. In a perfect execution, it has no strands sticking out. They're all hidden. Put in there, we have a hydraulic crimper. You know, this is, you know, from a manual standpoint, in the DIYers, this is going to be a type of unit that you're going to use. There's multiple dies in the kit that comes. You choose the right die set for the size cable you're working with. Just feed that through there. Basically, my left hand is holding the lug on the cable to make sure it doesn't slide out of the position I want it in until it engages. And then from there, just going to apply pressure, and the hydraulic action is going to take care of the crimping for us. And then release it, and you have a nice crimp there. And then we'll just finish that off with a little heat shrink. The main purpose for this, aesthetically, well, think about how beautiful it looks. The main reason we're doing this is actually If you did have any loose hairs, 1 or 2 little strands that got out, this is going to seal that off so we don't have any of those strands floating around, potentially bumping into anything else in your system.
And that is definitely preferable to electrical tape, right?
Yeah. So, you know, electrical tape technically does the job, but you know, having a high quality finished off cable, I think is going to be satisfactory to yourself doing the job. And it, you know, looks good when you're showing off to your friends and family too, but definitely prefer it over electrical tape. All right, this is a good kind of tip for some of you DIYers out there. Tom and I, if you're on site, kind of changed the plan of how we're going to position his battery bank within his compartments that he has, just based on access, maintenance of other components in his RV. And so we are going to put 2 of his batteries up on top of his generator bay housing. So what we're going to do to reinforce that housing so we can put these batteries, even though they're lightweight, they still weigh 65 pounds each. We're going to reinforce the top of the generator housing with a nice 3/4 inch thick plywood. We've also, you can see here, we've pre-painted it just to look more finished once the install is done. So this is going to sit up. These 2 batteries are going to be up in that area. We want to keep them secure. So how, you know, what's a method to keep them secure? There's a lot of different ways to do it. Since we made this decision yesterday, we don't have the time to fabricate anything from a welding standpoint or anything like that. But from a DIY standpoint, this is a very common type of thing to do, where you need to secure the batteries down. Of course, strap to keep them down for the vertical movement is great. But you can also take like aluminum angle iron. You can score it, be able to bend around the battery. So we've done that on both sides. We've pre-drilled some holes that we'll use to anchor it down. So basically take this and it'll go around the battery like this, and it'll hold. Obviously the front to back is being prevented from both ends, and also the sidewards movement as well is being prevented. Now we'll put the second one over here. So that'll give us the movement from forward and backwards and sideways, and then we will have a strap that we're going to run through and underneath that'll come on up over and keep the vertical movement in place as well. So once we're all done, these 2 batteries are going to be nice and secure and safe in their locations. So a good thing to make sure you're doing anytime you're putting in your battery bank is to make sure that they're well in position. As we've talked about, you know, loose connections are a bad thing when we're talking about electricity. And so to make sure those connections stay nice and snug is to make sure there's no stress on those connections with movement. And by securing these batteries, we do that. So this is how we did it. It's, I think, a very good example of what a DIYer may do if this is something you're going to do on your own. However, I would say if any of this is, at any point you decide that it's a little bit past your comfort level, please reach out to a professional to do the install for you. We do have you know, some references on our website to a couple installers around the country, but by all means we want everybody to be safe and secure while they're out there. But hopefully this helps some of you guys out.
Is that also a bus bar on the left there?
These, yeah, they're bus bars. So you
Okay.
have your original stock wiring. These are positive bus bars. So you had this is coming from your hydraulics. This is coming from your, this is another bus bar from your 12 volt. That's your fuse panel inside by your breaker panel comes to here, and then that joins it here. And this cable is from your solar charge controller. It's going through this breaker and over to your solar charge controller. So those are all landing here, and then we're going to connect this through the on-off switch. It'll go through over to the catastrophic fuse, which sits on the positive side of the bus bar for the battery bank. So all the batteries are going to tie to this bus bar. And right now you're seeing the shunt again wired to the negative side of the battery bank, and then all of our other negatives will connect to that side, the load side. A tip for you guys out there, if you're using, this is a 600 amp rated switch, the switch is. Blue Seas makes one as well at 600 amp. Usually the studs with that rating, they're 1/2 inch studs. Most of the lugs that you're gonna work with are gonna be in the 3/8 inch range. So when you get to this, you either have pre-purchased 1/2 inch lugs to put on here, or you'll find yourself having to modify them. But just remember 1/2 inch lugs when you're working with a 600 amp rated on-off switch.
And those are the upgraded cables there from, what was it, the 2-aught?
You had 2-aught, and yes, this is 4-aught coming from your inverter. And then we have 4-aught running through over to our battery bank bus bar, which will be over here.
Do you have to check the connections on these at all?
You know, everything in here is properly done. We've got washers, lock washers on the bolts that require all that. Lock washer is a requirement. You move it down the road. So all this has it on there. So it's not really going to move. But, you know, say every 6 months, you know, you can open up, just take a ratchet and, you know, just test it and see. You know, if you really want to get technical, you can actually put a mark with a Sharpie marker and a straight line from here across your bolt, and you can have a visual check. And if the line has moved, you know visually that your bolt has loosened up.
Oh,
that way you don't have to actually go around and do that. Yeah, if you look at
nice hack.
Yeah, really nice hack. If you look at a lot of maintenance vehicles, buses, and other maintenance vehicles, they'll do that on the lugs on their wheels.
Like it was made for it.
Yeah, buddy. Right in there. So you can take this system, you could get more of these bus bars. You take out these things and you just keep bolting them on. It'd be like one massive long bus bar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
it's
very
called-
expandable then.
Yeah, it's called the it's Victron Energy's Lynx system. So it's bus bar. You can have the power in, which is this, which is not fused. On one side, you can have a shunt, and then you can have your distributor over here, which is fused for all your different circuits. You can also use the distributor on the battery bank side too. If you choose to fuse each individual battery. We have the whole battery bank fused, leaving the battery bank. When you're done, this is going to look so clean.
Oh, it's looking amazing how it is, and you know, you don't have the cap on it, so you know, it looks great. Wow, it's sure a lot cleaner look, only being wired on that far end.
So yeah, you're now on inverter power.
So you said this is one of your favorite parts of installs?
Oh yeah, the satisfaction of getting a cable from point A to point B in a fashion that most wouldn't attempt to do. Something's gratifying. It's kind of also running solar cables from the roof. You're always now a lot of rigs come with a solar prep, so there's a channel to get them onto.
Oh, sure.
But if they don't, you got to kind of find your own way. You always find a way. There's always a way. Success.
Yay.
We got through this whole time not making a mess. And we just destroyed it.
It's alive.
It's got power. All right, so we finished the installation of the digital display for the Victron Energy BMV 712. This is a physical display that's mounted inside if you choose to. Again, if you don't want to, this can be left by the battery bank, by the shunt. But it does have to be plugged in. On this model, the Bluetooth chip sits inside this display, so you do need to plug it in if you have it. The reason that we really like the BMV 712 is because of its excellent Bluetooth range. There's over a 70 to 80 foot range on this model. If you have a fifth wheel, it is almost a must if you're doing a system like this where you don't have a massive Victron system that you can integrate with other components. But for all your average upgrades where you're just putting in lithium, switching out your converter, charger, and adding a battery monitor, we really like and recommend the 712 because of that phenomenal Bluetooth range of 70 to 80 feet. Anywhere in your camper, you're going to be able to Bluetooth into it, also around your campsite. So the physical display here, of course, it's great. So you're in, the living quarters, you're right by it. You can just take a quick peek at, right now we have it set for the percent state of charge, sitting at 100% right now. We have fully charged batteries. Later in the day, it may drop down. You can take a quick glance at it without pulling open your phone if you happen to be right in the area. So yeah, it gives you kind of two options to either manage this by Bluetooth or the physical display itself. All right, so just want to kind of go over the battery monitor with a shunt. We have the Victron Energy BMV 712, which is sitting right here. That's our shunt. All of our negative loads come here and run across it, and then this is all our battery bank. So we're measuring all the current that's flowing out of and into the battery bank through that battery monitor. A little bit of the initial setup when you load this up, open up your Victron app. It's going to do a couple updates right away. After that's done, you want to click into it. You're going to have some initial readings. The percentage is likely going to go up to 100%. We've been playing around with it. Ours says 87 right now. But the default when it gets power is it goes straight to 100%. That does not mean your battery is full. It just means that the battery monitor is now active. It doesn't know where it's at until you help tell it where it's at. So we need to do the battery setup. So in the top right here, we're going to click on the gear icon, and then go into battery. And under battery capacity, Tom here has a 1200 amp hour battery bank, so we're going to type in 1200. The next thing down is charged voltage. This is at what voltage, when the shunt sees a certain voltage, it tells it to go to 100%. So in our case, we're going to set this to 14.4. The next one is discharge floor. By default, it's set to 50%. As you know, in a lead acid and AGM, you should only be discharging those batteries to about roughly 50% to maintain this properly over time. With a lithium battery, if you need to, you can drop it down to 0. On a day-to-day basis, we'd recommend that you drop it 80% down to 20 and then do a recharge back. But if you're a boondock, you're off-grid, and you're just trying to squeak out the last day, you're down in the 15s and 10s, perfectly fine. It's not going to harm the battery. You get it back out of charger the next couple days, get it back up. So the discharge floor, we're going to set to 20%. Again, for those, that's a good standard setting. For the people that are advanced boondockers, you could nudge this down. With a large battery bank, you could nudge this down a little bit more. But basically what that's telling us is if you have a 100 amp hour battery, you're saying the discharge floor is 20%. So you're telling this battery monitor to only use the 80% from 20 up to 100. And so your monitor reads 100% or it reads 0%. When it reads 0, it actually should still have 20% of the energy left in the battery. So you're kind of building in a safety buffer with that discharge floor. So we've changed that to 20. Tell current, leave at 4%. Charge detection time, leave at 3. We want to change the Puchert exponent from 1.25 default to 1.05. And then we want to change the charge efficiency factor from 95 up to 99%. You can leave the current threshold at 0.10 amps and the time to go period at 3 minutes. So that's it. The last thing I'd show here, once you've done this initial setup, you pretty much never need to touch it again. Unless you're doing some type of reconfiguration, adding batteries to change the capacity. Over time, the battery monitor, it's independent of the batteries. It's doing its best job to track where the batteries are. Sometimes you might show up after a couple months to a campground, you plug in, you've been plugged in for 3 days, you're charging, and your battery monitor only goes to 98%. It won't go to 100%. You're like, the batteries have to be fully charged. Why is it sitting 98%? It's because the shunt has kind of lost track of exactly where it's at. So you can open up the battery settings and go down and hit the button called synchronize, and that will say set battery SOC to 100%. So it's going to manually force it to 100%. And you go back here, before we had 87%, now it says 100 just by pressing that button. Again, if you had that 98% for a couple days sitting on shore power, you go in and hit synchronize and you'll correct it and then recalibrate it back to 100%. So just a quick overview of the Victron Energy Victron Connect app with the BMV 712.
Time to throw the switch. This should start making a lot of noise.
Oh, there it goes.
Yep. How much of a charge do you typically have on the batteries when they're sent?
About 30% when they leave our warehouse.
Okay.
So some of that's just from shipping batteries around and fully charged, just less energy stored in the battery. We do fully charge them during their manufacturing process, and then we discharge them as a part of the testing, but we bring them down to about 40 to 30%. So that's what you get them at.
Okay.
So yeah, this is going to charge up here for a while. So here we are. We finished the install. 12 volt, 1200 amp hours of Enduro powered lithium to power Tom's needs off grid. With his 1100 plus watts of solar on the roof. This is going to give him some extended run time, less generator run time when he's off grid. He's not going to wake up in the middle of the night with his generator kicking on to recharge the batteries, with his bed being right above the generator, so I'm sure he's happy about that. Also, plenty of power to keep that refrigerator running without concern. So overall, here's where we're at. We have 4 12 volt 300s. We have 2 down here, and we put 2 up here above the generator bay. We did reinforce this with 3/4 inch plywood all the way across, anchored down. Then the batteries are secured in place in all directions. They're not going to move. They come down wired into our battery bank bus bar. So battery 4, battery 3 from up top, and then battery 2 and battery 1 from down here. All of these cables are the exact same length from each battery. So even though this one's physically closer to the bus bar, the cable length is the same as this and the furthest battery away. So that way we have even distribution of power. So we ended up here, we got our battery bank bus bar, we have our Victron Energy BMV 712 shunt to accurately monitor our state of charge for a lithium battery here. As you can see, this flows through from our inverter and then also to another bus bar, which captures all of our negatives from standard 12 volt stuff that was already in the camper. So we have our generator ground going in here. We have a new chassis ground that we put in as well here. Over here is a positive bus bar. Same thing, all the existing 12 volt loads coming from the RV are landing here. The generator loads landing here. And then we jump into our 4-aught that goes up through our on-off switch, and it's connected through to the battery bank. The last thing I'd like to point out up here is our 300 amp fuse with our 3000 watt inverter. That's protecting, that's between the battery bank and the cutoff switch. Again, that's protecting all of our wiring downstream. One other thing I'd like to point out is besides just upgrading the amount of energy that was available for them off-grid, was that slight install mistake that happened in the last system, which is the last minute they switched from a 2000 watt to 3000 watt inverter, leaving them with smaller cable size than they should have had. So here's the cable we took out, and at first glance it was pretty big cable, but if you put it up here and you see this 2-aught cable, which I'm holding, is much smaller than the 4-aught cable that we're using now. So that 4-aught cable is running through the system, through the battery bank, to the inverters. It's properly sized. If Tom wants to run his fireplace and his space heater again when the next time the power goes out, he's going to have no issues with the wire sizing in his system. So overall, I think the end product's really good. It's clean, it's simple.
So we've got a couple viewer questions for you, Harrison.
Live feed there.
Mike and Danny Smith, they are planning to convert their AGM batteries to lithium, but without solar when the time comes. They're nervous though. Our coach is 100% electric and my lack of knowledge on the subject matter is intimidating.
Excellent.
What advice would you have for them?
Well, that's a great question, and if it's intimidating, what I would say for anybody, you know, hire a professional to do the work for you. But what I can tell you is overall the conversion to lithium is a very simple switch. The characteristics of a lithium battery are going to far outweigh your lead acid AGM, especially if you spend some time off grid. If you're doing a overnight at a harvest host or trying to do 2 or 3 days here or there, and you have things like a residential refrigerator, you have to run your furnace a lot at night, things like that, you're going to gain a lot of the benefits of lithium. So don't let that hold you back from the conversion. You know, the basic 3 best practices for switching out to lithium, and you don't have to do everything that Tom's got going on here in the system. He's kind of full off grid. You basically need to decide what size battery bank is right for you as far as your needs, and everybody's needs are a little different. 2, make sure your onboard charger, which is called your converter, is lithium compatible. Anything 22 and newer likely already has that. If it's older, it's a simple swap out. And then the last thing is that battery monitor with shunt to accurately monitor the state of charge of the batteries. It's going to really help you have more information about where your batteries are and less battery anxiety by putting that in. So those are the 3 basics. For somebody that's just looking to upgrade to lithium, that's a, you know, half-day weekend project for somebody that hasn't done it, and it can be very quick for somebody that has done it. So don't let it hold you back. I can tell you that if you are going to spend time disconnected from shore power, the benefit lithium with the right size system, which can still be a small and modest system, is very empowering.
So another question here from Lee. If you have 3 lead acid, can you mix and match with lithium?
That's a great question, Lee. Just like with your standard AA, AAA battery, if you read the small print on that, it says do not mix new and old batteries. It also says do not mix unlike chemistries. So the answer is no. You cannot mix lead acid batteries with lithium. You shouldn't be mixing lead acid with AGM batteries either. Can you do it? They're all 12 volt. Like, will it work? It will work for a minute, but long term, and when I say long term, when you're mixing chemistries, that is a very bad idea. So you definitely don't want to do that. One of the quick things is lead acid sits at 12.8 volts when it's full, and lithium sitting at 13.6. So the voltage profile is different. So you know they're going to be fighting that standpoint. But the answer is no.
So we're going to Instagram here,
right.
And first question is solar charging good? Which kind of leads me to maybe we should answer the question, what are all the different ways that we can charge besides solar?
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, solar charger, to answer the question, yes, it's good. Is it required? You know, if you're going to be off grid, it's definitely a nice thing to consider adding. As you're asking, all the different charge sources. You think about a battery bank like this, it can receive a charge from many different sources. So for example, we're at a park right now plugged in, so our onboard charger that's connected through to shore power is what's charging the batteries. Tom also has solar on top of his roof. So if the solar panels are turned on, those at the same time that he's plugged to shore power are double the charge. You're getting it from your solar and also from shore power at the same time. So, and that's okay. I could even add a 3rd charge source in if Tom was to pull his truck up, hook up his 7-pin, and have this small little charge that comes over the 7-pin, about 3 to 5 amp charge, and he had his alternator on his truck. He's getting 3 to 5 amps from there, and that's a 3rd charge source. So, is solar good for charging? Yes, it is. It's a safe additional charge source. And anybody that's thinking about doing extended time off grid, definitely solar can be a good investment. It's not required. Can you do generators instead of a solar panel? By all means. A lot of people are trying to get away from as much, generator runtime, and so that's the investment into lithium. The other thing is, in the last couple of years, there's a lot more 12-volt fridges, a lot more residential fridges going into RVs. Those are power hogs. They use about 7 to 75 amps per hour in a 24-hour period. So that's about 180 amp hours. So a lot of the manufacturers are putting up 1 or 2 solar panels on the roof to offset the majority of that consumption for you. What we do find is that if you want to spend a lot of time off grid, and when I say a lot of time, I'm saying more modest 2 to 3 days, you probably need a little bit more solar than that. than the standard they give you. But yeah, solar is definitely a great charge source, but there's multiple other ways to charge your lithium batteries.
And Wandering Wishes asks, do you need a DC to DC charger between the truck alternator and the batteries?
It's a great question and a very common question. Obviously, you have a lot of investment into your tow vehicle. And if you have a Class C, Class A, big investment into those as well. You have an alternator up front. With a lithium battery, they take a charge very efficiently and they can take very high rates of charge. So the question is, do I need something to protect my alternator? It can be answered in two different ways. If you have a towable, a fifth wheel or a travel trailer and it's all stock, you're using your 7-pin or a 4-pin connector to connect between the tow vehicle and the RV, the answer is no, you do not need a DC to DC charger. The reason for that is a small low gauge wire that runs through the 7-pin through your tow vehicle. It is also fused within your tow vehicle to protect that wire. You're only going to get about a 3 to 5 amp charge over that wire, and therefore you aren't going to be able to pull high rates of amperage off of your alternator and thus overstress your alternator. If you have a Super C, B, Class A, thing like that, your chassis, your alternator is pretty much one with the house system, large cabling, and yes, you do need to consider your options for either a DC to DC charger. One of the most common solutions out there is a BIM, which is a battery isolation management device. That is commonly found from a company called Precision Circuits. If you have one of those in your coach, they do have a lithium BIM option, the LI225. At that point, it's a pretty quick swap out of your devices to just basically properly charge your lithium battery. What that basically is doing is allowing the charge to come through for a short amount of time, and then it turns off and allows the alternator to cool down. So it's on, off, on, off, on, off until the battery's full. And that's how they manage and don't overtax your alternator. The other solution, if you're doing a new build and you don't have any of those devices, is a thing called a DC to DC charger. And basically what that's going to do is going to regulate the flow of current. So if you do a 30 amp DC to DC charger in your system, only 30 amps is ever going to be pulled, and only 30 amps is going to be put onto your alternator, which is a very easy load for it to handle. So you can, going back to towables, you can add a DC to DC charger and run individual cables at the right wire size from your RV to your tow vehicle, and use the DC charger to get a faster charge while towing down the road. So great question. Just to recap again, if you have a fifth wheel or travel trailer towable stock, there is no need to add in a DC to DC charger. If you are in a Class B, C, or Class A, definitely want to look into your options to protecting that alternator when you upgrade to lithium.
Wow, wasn't Harrison full of awesome information about an RV lithium battery install? And thanks to him for sticking around late and answering your questions. Again, you can find all of his recommended parts and tools and more lithium battery install videos in our companion blog post in the video description. Let us know what you thought of this video in the comments. And for our very next video, you can click right here.